Welcome to Andy's Garage. I'm Andy Phillips. Today I'm going to show you how to bleed your brake lines. So let's go ahead and get started. These are the items that you'll need to complete this. To begin with, you'll need a brake bleeder vacuum pump kit like I have here. This particular one I picked up at Harbor Freight. I believe it was around 25 bucks, but I'll put the information along the bottom. You can pick them up anywhere though, but that's really important. It makes the job a lot easier. That way you don't need a second person to be pumping the brakes while you're underneath bleeding those out. Cool thing with this kit, it comes with everything you see here except for the wrench. So you have the hoses here that connect to the barbed end here. They run through this canister, and I'll show you shortly how to set it up. But basically that will then pull the air and also the brake fluid in here. That way it's not spilling on the ground. Then you have these other attachments as well. It also comes with a variety of these fittings here that go on the actual valve on your vehicle. So that way you can cap it over that, so that way you're not spilling stuff on the street as well. And then last but not least, you also need a wrench for your correct size, so that way you can open the brake valve on your vehicle to bleed that. So all these components here is all that you'll need. Let's head over to the vehicle so we can start seeing how we need to set this up. To properly set this up, you want to take your vacuum pump here. We're going to go ahead on the barbed edge here. We're going to go ahead and connect the line. Make sure that you slide it all the way over so you have a nice tight fitting. There we go. Squeeze it all the way down on there. Next thing that we're going to do is now we're going to connect it to the lid on this canister. Take the lid off, and you can see here it has a rubber gasket in here, so it has a nice tight seal once it's together. Now as you're looking here on the bottom of the lid, you'll see that there's a valve that's like a 90-degree valve coming in, and the other one's just a hole. This 90-degree here is where the pump is going to be pulling the brake fluid. So the brake fluid is going to be coming in here, and the pressure is going to be pouring it down into the canister. So the actual line connected to the pump goes on this side that it does not have the 90-degree edge. And I'm going to go ahead and show a close-up. On this particular pump set that I have here, it actually has it labeled to the pump here on the top. I'll show that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to connect this line onto this end here, and you want to make sure that you slide it all the way on. And then on this end here, which is going to be going out to the actual fitting the brake valve on the vehicle, we're going to go ahead and put this line on. And then on the very end, we're going to go ahead and connect this adapter that's going to go onto the actual bleeding valve. So that'll slide on here. You want to get that nice and tight. And then now the cap will then lock on. And this is pretty much how you want your setup to look. So you've got your pump running into the canister on the appropriate end, coming out to this piece that'll then connect to the actual brake line. And that way we can build the pressure, pull it through, and we can bleed it properly. Now to properly bleed the air out of the lines, you want to locate your reservoir for the master cylinder, and you want to kind of work your way to that point from the furthest part, so that way the air works in that direction. So in this case here, this vehicle that we're dealing with, the reservoir to the master cylinder is here on the front driver's side. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually start off on the passenger rear side, and then pretty much from that furthest point, then work from the passenger rear to the driver rear, passenger front to the driver front. So that way we're working the air kind of in a zigzag motion here, coming to that master cylinder to end, and that'll work all the air through the system from the furthest point back. Before we get started, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to pump the brake so we can then build up the pressure. So when you first get in your vehicle and you put the brake down, it's going to be a little bit soft, but as you pump it, providing that your system doesn't have any leaks, it's going to then build up the pressure. So that's what we want to do, is we want to build up the pressure so the pedal's nice and tight, so that way when we connect and we build up the pressure on the vacuum pump, it can start sucking it out at a nice speed instead of dragging it out. So let's go ahead and pump that, and then we'll head under the car and start bleeding the actual brake lines. There we go. Now it's nice and tight. So we're ready to head underneath. Next thing you want to do is you want to locate your bleeder valve. Pop the little cap off of it right here. We've already checked our fitting that goes onto this edge. But before we do anything, because once you put the hose attachment on there, you're not going to be able to get a wrench on it. So we're going to go ahead and attach the wrench. In this vehicle here, this is a 10 millimeter. But as mentioned already, you need to figure that out for yours. So we'll go ahead and attach that. There we go. And then now we can attach the vacuum pump adapter on that end. I'm going to go ahead and put that on and we'll be right back, and then we can start the process. Make sure that is all the way over, capped over that, because then the pressure will then be able to pull it out. Now before you even loosen that valve, with it still closed, we're going to go ahead and build up the pressure inside of this vacuum pump line. So we're going to come down here, see if I can get a shot of it. We're going to go ahead and take the pump. We're going to go ahead and take the pressure up to between 10 to 15. There we go. I'll put it right there, right in the middle. And now we can then move up here and we can loosen that bleeder valve, and that should start pulling the air out until we start to see all the air bubbles gone. And then we'll close the valve and move on to the next one. And then just to kind of recap here what we're doing, we're here on this is the wheel rear passenger side. So we're at the furthest point from the master cylinder reservoir. And then we'll move our way to the driver rear, passenger front, and then driver front. And that should work all the air from the furthest point back. As we loosen this, should start to see it coming through. And you can see here it comes. You definitely see some air bubbles, a lot of them coming down. So we're going to go ahead and run that down until the air bubbles are gone, and then we'll close that valve, move on to the next one, and then we will check the reservoir, top it off accordingly, and wrap it up. So rather than bore you with all this, I'm just going to give you one glimpse of how it's coming into the canister, and then we'll come back once I'm done hitting all four wheels. And you can see all those air bubbles coming out, a lot. Finally starting to see the air bubbles trickle out. We'll let it run just a little bit more, make sure there's nothing else in there, then we'll close this valve, move on to the next one. Okay, we are here on the driver's side, front, the last one. Just finished bleeding the air out. Not much came out of this one because as you work your way up, you're getting most of it out. So just a little bit on this one. So we just close the valve, take that off, make sure you cap it. And now let's go up to the reservoir and top it off as needed. When you're ready to start adding the brake fluid, make sure you read on the reservoir. That'll tell you, for example, right here you have only 0.3 brake fluid. Needs to be put into here. So we're going to go ahead and top it off with that appropriate brake fluid. Take it right up to the fill line. Add that in here. We finished topping it off. You can see right there, it's right at that max line. Go ahead and close that. Make sure it's sealed, and we're done. All right, well that pretty much wraps up this video on how to bleed your brake lines with a vacuum pump kit. I hope this video was informative. I hope it helped you out. Please send me any questions, any comments. I would love to hear from you. As always, I appreciate all the support. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time.